So I'm sure, like most quilters, that you have all kinds of batting scraps left over from little projects, from maybe you do some long arm quilting, and there's always that thought, how can I use this up? Can I piece it for some smaller projects? So some tips for you. Of course, here I have two pieces of scrap batting. You want to make sure that the two that you're going to make work together are the exact same brand, the exact same substrate. So don't think about putting a cotton with a polyester or a blend, anything like that. Make sure they are the same brand so they'll behave the same way. So there are a few ways to piece your battings. First off, easiest way, something that doesn't need any other tools, is just sewing them together. So you can just zigzag pieces of batting together. Now, sometimes we have to be a little careful with the polyester battings because they stretch a little bit. But this actually is not a zigzag stitch. I don't know if you can see it. This is a little serpentine stitch, or like you take 2 stitch over and 2 stitch back. And it really helps. I'll see if I can show this up close. It's so light thread. Yeah, there it is. So you can definitely do that, but by doing that, you're going to have to make sure that your pieces that you're piecing together have a really nice straight cut edge, so you can just butt them up together and do that stitching on them. Another way to do this is to use a fusible batting tape. So this is a really thin fusible tape, just like almost like an interfacing. You could cut your own interfacing, and then you would just butt up your edges and then lay this on top and fuse it, and then you have a really nice flat surface without any gaps in it, and you can quilt over it really nicely and straight. The reason why you want to either stitch things together or use batting tape for when you are quilting things is because if you just try and butt things up and you leave them like this, things can scooch apart as you start the quilting process. And I have an example for you that I did. I had just really little left to long arm my border here, and I ran out of batting. And look, I just put a piece in, but this is what happens. I didn't fuse it down or do anything with it, so it moved on me. Yep, this is your warning. But on the long arm, a good way to do that, if you run out of batting, you just need a little bit more. What I should have done is I should have fused that in place with a little bit of temporary adhesive, 505 basting spray or something, and then this wouldn't have happened. And another good tip when you do that, even when you spray underneath, as you lay the pieces together, have them overlap a little bit and then smush them down. So then they're kind of pushed together versus having the chance to create a gap. But if you want to use some things like that and want to piece your battings, and you want to make sure that line, that you have a straight line, you want to make sure that that is not seen, there is another way to do that. So you can also cut both of the ends a little bit irregularly. Instead of cutting a straight, you can just layer them on top of each other and then cut a little bit of a curve. So that way, these two are going to match because I'm cutting them at the same time. Not very smooth since I'm doing this on television, of course. But as you can see, I have an edge here and I have an edge here that are going to match up perfectly. So when you are laying these together, you can smush them together and they have a nice wave, and then you don't have that straight line in your quilt where that intersection is, and have the chance of that maybe landing on a seam. And this is something that I do a lot when I'm using my fusible batting. So fusible batting I like to use with my Quilt As You Go. So whenever I'm it is perfect to use the fusible batting for scraps for Quilt As You Go. You have fusible one side, so I took these 2 pieces and I cut them out together, the edges. I fused the one piece down, and then I would just take the other one. Again, I would overlap it just a little bit and then make sure it just kind of falls down like this, and then fuse this one in place. and then you won't see that line going straight through. So some different ideas for using up your batting scraps, sometimes called Franken batting. And I say go ahead, try it, just make sure you follow some of these tips and always make sure you have the same exact batting that you're putting together.